congratulations again to the Rosenzweig family. And it's a pleasure to welcome all of you here in the Bark Sanctuary, and of course, all of those watching online from here in Houston and from parts all over the world. Now, as in tradition, every Friday night, my wife Lisa and I bless our children. And we move around the Shabbat dinner table, as we'll do in just an hour or so, and place our hands upon their heads and give them the traditional blessings. We also whisper in their ear something they did this week that made us proud. And we give them this blessing every Friday night that we are together, no matter what they've done, and no matter how angry they've made us, and no matter if the rooms are clean or not. I'll never forget years ago, one Friday evening, one of my children, who will remain nameless, decided not to tell us that one of our dogs decided to enjoy our Shabbat dessert early, a large chocolate cake. Instead of telling us, our child decided to join our dog and also enjoy that cake early. The kitchen, I've never seen it messier in my life. In fact, if you look closely in parts of my kitchen, I think there's still pieces of chocolate cake you can find in our kitchen. In fact, I remember when that happened, I thought about this week's command found in the Torah to stone to death a rebellious child. Yes, even with my deep frustration that evening, when the time came to bless our children, I still did. It wasn't so easy that particular Friday night, and yes, there are Friday nights where it's not easy. But we do every Friday night as we did that one night. We still did, because that's the commitment we made as parents. Every Friday night, no matter what, we stand over our children, we draw them close, and we confer upon them the ancient blessings of our people. Because love is something, according to our tradition, you don't just feel. Love is something you do. In fact, if you were to ask me what ahava, what love is, I would say that blessing loved ones on a Friday night, spouses, children, close friends, is as close as I would define love can be. Because the tradition is saying we shouldn't love someone because they are perfect or simply because they are wonderful to us or they did something for us that week. It's not conditional, it's unconditional. We love them through their mess and through their brokenness. We love them not because they make our lives better, but because they make life itself better. But my question tonight is, if we can go with the idea that this is love, then what's the opposite of love? Is it contempt? Hate? To me, the opposite of love is not hatred. It's something else. Perhaps something even worse. To find out what that is, ask any young adult who experienced a difficult childhood. And they will most likely tell you that their childhood was difficult because of the indifference of their parents. Because the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. It's to have no feeling at all. It's too many times when we see parents who neglect, avoid, or ignore. And yes, we've all had at times neglectful friends, neglectful coworkers, neglectful family members, neglectful bosses. And we know how much it can hurt. We do all we can to be who we are, to love this other person, to be there for this other person, and yet they ignore us, they avoid us, they neglect us. But my friends, how too often do we do the same? In our old world right now, I think of too many who have forgotten that apathy is the opposite of love. Maybe it's taking those who don't believe in what we believe in and turning them into nameless enemies. Maybe it's canceling out a lifetime of work because of a single gaffe. If you'd rather drop the mic on someone than drop a hand to someone, then perhaps you're acting out of the opposite of love. Maybe it's simply not caring. The great Rabbi Stephen S. Wise used to tell the story of what happened when he first visited China some years before the Second World War. At the time, the only means of transportation in China was by rickshaw. And the rickshaws were pulled by old, weak, frail people who would cough constantly as they dragged their burden. At first, the rabbi was horrified. He felt uncomfortable that his transportation should be at the cost of so much suffering by these rickshaw pullers. He found himself lying awake at night in the hotel, hearing their rasping coughs. He said this to his Chinese host, and they reassured the rabbi. They said to him, "Don't worry. In 2 more weeks, you'll get used to it. In a month, you won't even hear it." And so it was. And the rabbi said afterwards that that was the most embarrassing day of his life. How many evils, how many acts of callousness, how many acts of cruelty have we become accustomed to? We see them so often, we perhaps do them so often, that we are no longer shocked or shamed. We just turn our heads. We no longer even think of them or even notice what's going around, what's happening around us. And whether they come from loved ones or neighbors, other people at the office, other members of our synagogue family, or even strangers, do we even notice when others are in trouble? Afghanistan, Haiti, the continued violence that plagues our inner cities. Around the world today, there's an increasingly sullen sense that apathy is overtaking empathy. I think there are too many people fighting too many injustices. There are too few people fighting too many injustices that are too interwoven to easily untangle. Yet there are not too few of us. It is just too many of us spend perhaps little time looking up from what that distracts us, keeps us occupied more than ever before. In a world of binge-watching on-demand media, we're easily entertained, yet also easily distracted from what plagues the real world around us. It's never been easier to hide in our homes, be engrossed in a good Netflix series. Trust me, I'm guilty of it, just as perhaps others are as well. And as we walk through life, it's easier more than ever before not to see those small baskets of possibility floating in front of us. And we don't always notice the blows being felt by those we walk among. But perhaps if we just look up, even for a few moments, we will see the fire that does rage around us, calling for us to not only avoid danger, but to help in ways small and large to truly repair our world. Too often we forget too easily that all of us were created in the divine image, no matter who we are and where we live. My colleague, Rabbi Noah Farkas, points out something interesting about the last book of the Torah that we're currently in, the book of Deuteronomy. The Hebrew word for ahava, or love, is used more in this book than any of the 5 books of the Torah. Over and over again, Moses tries to teach our people that love is what motivates God's actions of redemption, forgiveness, and justice. Moses shows our people again that love is not just a feeling, but it's an action, it's a deed, it's something you commit, it's something you do. It's not just in your heart, but it's in your hands, it's in your feet, it's in your everyday actions. And Moses teaches that we too are expected to return God's love through our deeds by raising and teaching our children to love, of doing what is right even when we don't feel like it, even when we are exhausted, even when we have our own things to do, and to loving the stranger, the widow, and the orphan. Moses does not just tell us how and why love matters so much, but he actually gives examples. That's the beauty of the Torah, of when love matters most. Just as the cases of lost property or even the fallen donkey that needs your help to stand up. Even the animal of an enemy, we must help, because that's true love for God's creations. Love is all over this book of Deuteronomy. Just as we end the book, and just as we end the Torah, just as our people are ready to set up the first Jewish nation, so many examples of sharing our love by simply paying attention than taking action. Yes, as we move towards the new year, just a little over 2 weeks away, let us enjoy, let us cherish, let us treasure the book of Deuteronomy anew, and realize what the world needs more than anything else now is this book of love. And as we prepare for the upcoming Rosh Hashanah, Let the sounds of the shofar awaken us from our slumber. Let us find our way back from apathy and cruelty and ignorance and build a world of love. Yes, that's what every parent wishes for their child. It's what I pray for every Friday night for all of us. What makes our blessing so powerful. Because through ahavah, through love, we can make life itself much better. Shabbat shalom.